Dear students, this is lecture number 29 in supply chain management. Let us discuss the questions of the last lecture. The first question is: a supply contract specifies parameters governing the dash relationship. The answer is buyer supplier relationship or manufacturer supplier relationship. Second question is: identify the type of contract most suitable for PC manufacturer. So, what is the type of contract which is most suitable? In that case, the answer is revenue sharing contract. Third one, differentiate between direct and indirect materials. The direct materials are used in production of finished good. Indirect materials are used to support the operations of supply chain management. The topic of this lecture is coordination in a supply chain. The first topic is lack of supply chain coordination and the bullwhip effect. Supply chain coordination improves if all stages of the chain take actions that are aligned and increase total supply chain surplus. That means the coordination exists and it is also improved if all stages of the supply chain and their actions are aligned towards a common objective and also to increase the total supply chain surplus or profit of the supply chain management system. So, supply chain coordination requires each stage of the supply chain to share information and take into account the impact its actions have on other stages. That is, each stage of the supply chain they have to share the information with the other stages, and also they will consider the impact of the actions what they take in a particular stage. Can you recall the stages in supply chain management system? What are they? Customers, retailers, wholesalers or distributors. Next one is manufacturers. Next one is suppliers who supplies components or raw materials. So all these stages involved in any supply chain management system. So each stage in this supply chain management system should share the information with others at right time so that the actions taken by each stage will be aligned with the common objective, and also before taking the action what will be the impact of the action taken in one stage will have it on another stage will also be considered. Now we will see what are all the causes of lack of coordination between the stages of supply chain management system. A lack of coordination occurs because of the different stages of the supply chain have the objectives that conflict. That means each stage is having different objectives or aim, but that is having conflict with the aim or objectives of the other stages in the supply chain. The next reason may be the information moving between these stages may be delayed or distorted. So these two are the causes of the lack of coordination in supply chain management system. For example, the objective of retailers and the objective of manufacturers, if they conflict with each other, there will be a lack of coordination. Like that, if the information from the customer doesn't reach the manufacturer at right time, then also there will be a lack of coordination in the supply chain management system. Next, we are going to discuss bullwhip effect in supply chain management. This is very important topic in supply chain management, and mostly you can expect this question in university also. Let us see what is a bullwhip effect. One outcome of the lack of supply chain coordination is the bullwhip effect, in which fluctuations in orders increase as they move up the supply chain from retailers to wholesalers to manufacturers to suppliers. So this is called a bullwhip effect. That is, small fluctuations arises in orders in lower stages increases as they move up in the supply chain. This concept is called as bullwhip effect. The bullwhip effect distorts demand information within the supply chain, with each stage having a different estimate of what demand looks like. Due to this bullwhip effect, the demand information is distorted, that means disturbed or altered, or it is not correct, with each stage having a different estimate of what demand looks like. So each stage is having a different estimate values for the demand. You may think why this name bullwhip is used for this concept. Imagine a person having a long whip in his hand as shown in the picture. Assume that he is on customer side. If he gives a little nudge to the whip at the handle, assume a little nudge means just like a shake uh, through his hand by moving his elbow. So it creates little movements in the parts closest to the handle, but parts farther away would move more in an increasing fashion. The size of movement slowly increases from the left to right, as you could observe in the picture. The same thing happens in supply chain management. Small fluctuations in customer orders, slowly it increases customers to retailer and retailer to distributor. When it reaches the manufacturer, the fluctuations will be very high when compared to the fluctuation actually happened in the customer side. This effect is called as bullwhip effect in supply chain management. The graph in this slide shows that how information distortion happens in supply chain due to bullwhip effect. So what is a bullwhip effect? Actually, the increasing variability demand orders from downstream customers to upstream suppliers. Now you see the first graph in the top left corner. It shows the fluctuation in customers' demand to retailers. So there is a fluctuation in customers' orders to retailers. The fluctuation is very small in terms of number. Now you go to the second graph, that is top right. So what it shows actually, now the fluctuation of orders retailers to wholesalers. What is the job of retailers? Actually, they consolidate orders from customers. So now you observe the third graph, that is bottom left, where it shows the fluctuation from wholesalers to manufacturers. So slowly the fluctuation is increasing because customers to retailers, then retailers to wholesalers, then wholesalers to manufacturer. Then the last graph, which is on the bottom right, which shows the fluctuation in manufacturers' orders to suppliers, where you observe the fluctuation is very high when compared to the first graph. This effect is called as bullwhip effect. That is, the fluctuation starts in small range in customers' demand to retailers. As it moves up from retailers to wholesalers, wholesalers to manufacturers, then manufacturers to supplier, the fluctuation will reach a very high level. This is what called as bullwhip effect. That is why we define that the increasing variability in demand orders from downstream customers to upstream suppliers. The supply chain system should have mechanisms to effectively handle the bullwhip effect in supply chain management. For example, Procter and Gamble (P&G) has observed the bullwhip effect in the supply chain for Pampers diapers. The company found that raw material orders from P&G to its suppliers fluctuated significantly over time. That means they observed the fluctuation level is very high in raw material orders from P&G to its suppliers. Further down the chain, when sales at retail stores were studied, the fluctuations were there but very small. So they observed the fluctuation in retail stores, the demand of the product, the fluctuation is very small in retail stores. So it is reasonable to assume that the consumers of diapers at the last stage of supply chain used them at a steady rate because the fluctuation is very small. Though consumption of the end product was stable, orders for raw material were highly variable, increasing cost and making it difficult to match supply and demand. So they were not able to match the supply and demand because of this fluctuation in one side is very small, but on the other end, that is P&G to its suppliers is very high. This is what we call it as bullwhip effect in the supply chain system. Now we see the effect on performance of lack of coordination. A supply chain lacks coordination if each stage optimizes only its local objective without considering the impact on the complete chain. That means each stage of the supply chain focusing on their own objective but without bothering about the actions what they take in this stage will have impact on the complete chain in the supply chain system. So the total supply chain profits are also less than what could be achieved if they do it with a clear coordination. So what will happen if there is a lack of coordination between various stages of supply chain system? The total supply chain profits will also be very less. So in each stage of the supply chain, in trying to optimize its local objective, takes actions that end up hurting the performance of the entire supply chain. As there is no coordination or there is a lack of coordination in the supply chain, so each stage will optimize its own local objective, but the actions what they take for that optimization in that stage will end up in hurting the performance of the entire supply chain. That is, it will affect the performance of the entire supply chain. Lack of coordination also results if information distortion occurs within the supply chain. Consider the bullwhip effect in P&G in the product of Pampers diaper supply chain. As a result of the bullwhip effect, orders P&G receives from its distributors are much more variable than demand for diapers at retailers. That is, at one side they found the demand is in steady rate. That means variation is very small or fluctuation is very small. But in the other side, where they observed the fluctuation is very high in P&G to suppliers. This happens due to information distortion in the supply chain and leads to lack of coordination in the supply chain system. Next, we see the impact of the lack of supply chain coordination on various measures of performance in the supply chain. The first one is manufacturing cost. The lack of coordination increases manufacturing cost in the supply chain. As a result of the Bullwhip effect, P&G and its suppliers must satisfy a stream of orders that is much more variable than customer demand. So there is a high variability between the customer demand and the suppliers orders, that is P&G to suppliers orders. So P&G can respond to the increased variability by either building excess capacity or holding excess inventory. To satisfy the fluctuation in demand, they should have the excess inventory or to increase the capacity of production, both of which increase the manufacturing cost per unit produced. Next one is inventory cost. The lack of coordination increases inventory cost in the supply chain. To handle the increased variability in demand, P&G has to carry a higher level of inventory than the level required if the supply chain were coordinated. So, due to lack of coordination, there is a variation in the demand in different stages. That is why we have to keep higher level of inventory when we compare to the inventory level which is required if the supply chain were coordinated. As a result, inventory cost in the supply chain increases. So the high levels of inventory also increase the warehousing space because we have to keep the products in stock. So there is a need for increase in the warehousing space required, and so the warehousing cost also increases. The next one is replenishment lead time. Lack of coordination increases replenishment lead times in the supply chain. We already discussed the meaning of replenishment, that is, to fill the stock or supply of goods to the retailers or distributors. So, due to lack of coordination, the replenishment lead time also increases. The increased variability as a result of the bullwhip effect makes scheduling at P&G and supplier plants much more difficult than when demand is in the particular level. So, due to the variability in the demand as a result of bullwhip effect, the P&G and supplier will face a great difficulty in scheduling the operations and production. So there are times when the available capacity and inventory cannot supply the orders coming in, and so it leads to higher replenishment lead times. Next one is transportation cost. The lack of coordination increases transportation cost in the supply chain. The transportation requirements over time at P&G and its suppliers are correlated with the orders being filled. As a result of the bullwhip effect, transportation requirements fluctuate significantly over time. Due to the variability in the demand, the transportation has to take place so often in order to satisfy the orders. So, it is very difficult to plan the transportation in such a way that the transportation cost will be effectively managed. But due to the bullwhip effect, the transportation cost will also increase. Labor cost for shipping and receiving. The lack of coordination increases labor cost associated with shipping and receiving in the supply chain. Labor requirements for shipping at P&G and its suppliers fluctuate with the orders. As there is a fluctuation in demand, the planning will be very difficult in case of getting the products from the suppliers. So the labor cost will also increase due to lack of coordination. The next one is level of product availability. Lack of coordination hurts the level of product availability and results in more stock outs in the supply chain. The large fluctuations in orders make it harder for P&G to supply all distributor and retailer orders on time. So this increases the likelihood the retailers will run out of stock, resulting in lost sales for the supply chain. That is, due to lack of coordination, the company faces the higher level of variability in demand. To satisfy that, the P&G or any company has to work hard to supply all distributors and retailers on time. But mostly they may not be able to do it on time. Due to that, it increases the retailers will face the condition of out of stock. Due to this, there is a problem of lost sales. We already seen what you mean by lost sales. That means customer is asking for the particular product, but as the product is not available readily in the store, the customer may switch over to the another product. So that is called a lost sales. That means company loses its sale. That is why we call it as lost sale. Students answer for these questions.